on Sky News Australia. This is the Rita Panahi Show.
Good evening and welcome to the Rita Panahi Show. Coming up tonight, Anthony Albanese under fire for making a domestic violence rally organiser cry. Prue McSween weighs in shortly. I'll speak with a trans woman about the latest dramatic developments in the UK and what it feels like to be misgendered. We'll hear why Jerry Seinfeld is blaming PC culture for killing comedy. And as always, the very un-PC segment we call Lefties Losing It. And tonight, it's extra long and extra good.
You're hurting me! Just don't lift me! You're hurting me! Ow! 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 Help! Help!
Joining me now is Sky News contributor Prue McSween. Prue, we'll get to Albo shortly, but let's start with these mostly peaceful pro-Palestinian supporters and how they reacted in Melbourne when a footy fan rather innocently asked what their protest was all about.
Yeah, mate, he's just drunk.
Look after him, bro.
What's your problem?
Are you another Zionist?
No, I wouldn't know what was going on.
Palestinian.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, 15,000 children have been killed. Yeah. And 35 people have been killed.
Yeah, that's up. I agree, man. I just want to... What are you saying? Nothing, bro. Too much to drink, you sure? No, mate. I'm not being melted off. No, mate. I'll drop you right now. Are you... Yeah, I am serious, yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Not women, you big tough man. Really?
The guy was just simply asking what was happening, and the protesters respond with aggression, violence, chasing him down the street. If it wasn't for the brave employee who stepped in and tried to break up that clash, it could have spiralled into something much worse, Prue. Where were the cops?
Well, exactly. And where is the sanity? Rita, you know, these people were itching for a fight. They're a bunch of hotheads. And the aggression that they displayed, I mean, clearly the guy had been the Swans match and had a few drinks, and he was innocently asking a question, which is fair enough, for goodness sake, but they're just so paranoid, are they, or defensive or aggressive, that they just have so much head of steam that they just want to create mayhem on our streets. And, you know, we're all sick of it. I tell you, anybody who may have had sympathy for their cause surely must be getting to the point where they think enough is enough. And, you know, what can we do here anyway? There's one thing to protest, but nothing that little old Australia can do is going to stop what's happening in Gaza. So for God's sake, grow up.
Well, the sense of entitlement there, the fact that they think if anybody questions them, even if it's an innocent question about what are you doing, not that there are uninnocent questions, they weren't even challenged. Someone could have gone in there, and what if they were challenged? What if they were told their protest is giving comfort to Hamas, is giving comfort to the Iranian regime, why aren't they protesting about getting rid of Hamas? Why aren't they protesting for releasing the hostages? Then how would they have reacted? Because just to a question of what's this, they absolutely blew up. Now, let's talk about the bishop who was stabbed in an alleged terror attack earlier this month in Western Sydney in a church. He's back preaching. He's obviously still carrying those injuries. And he's made a very clear message here, Prue, that he cares about free speech. He cares about the freedom of religion. And he doesn't want what happened to him to be used by politicians or the East Safety Commissioner to bring about more censorship.
I am very proud of these great Anzac warriors who gave their life up to the very human rights, to the very freedom of speech and freedom of religion. They died to keep and preserve the human identity and integrity. And this is why I stand for that freedom of speech and freedom of religion. Every human has the right
Prue, if only our politicians and journalists were as passionate about our right to free speech as the Bishop is.
Oh, isn't he remarkable? What a beautiful man he is. And, you know, he sort of epitomises what being Christian and intelligent Christianity is all about. You know, I just feel it's very sad that we have this situation where we have our politicians who are tiptoeing around the sensitivity of Muslims because of the votes that are in it and cannot look at the bigger picture. I mean, we don't want this kind of unrest and mayhem and hatred in our churches, on our streets, in our community. And we have a situation where politicians just want to shut it all down. They don't want any kind of free speech if it's in any way going to upset their voting regime. And I just think that, you know, this man is to be admired so much. And if we had more of him, perhaps the world would be a much more peaceful and tolerant place.
Yes, man of principle, clearly. And I would hope Susan Ley, the Deputy Liberal leader, has a good listen to what the Bishop has to say there, because her comments on Friday were frankly disgraceful, standing 100% behind the E-Safety Commissioner, a leftist activist whose some of her decision-making has been bordering on bizarre. Now, let's talk about the PM being accused of making a young woman cry and then ignoring her obvious distress. Let's have a look as Anthony Albanese is called a liar at a women's rally against domestic violence over the weekend.
To be clear, we did ask to speak, myself and Katie, and were told that that wasn't possible, and that's fine. I respect the organisers' right to do that.
That's a full-out lie.
To do that. We're here today to demand that governments of all levels must do better, including my own, including every state and territory government.
Expose the 28.
We're here as well to say,
Prue, if this was Tony Abbott or Scott Morrison, they would be absolutely crucified for the rest of their days. I've got to say, I do have some sympathy there for Anthony Albanese. You can see him in the footage. Look at the woman crying, and she was being comforted by others, and he powers on with his speech. Should he have stopped? It's hard to say what is the right thing to do in that situation, but you can be sure if it was a Conservative politician, they'd be cast as some monstrous misogynist.
Well, I'm a tougher old bird than you because you're not an old bird, but I've got to say, Rita, I have no sympathy for him. He came to that rally because he tested the waters. He knew how anxious and upset and angry women were. And so he decided that he was going to front up, which, okay, I'll give him a little bit of kudos for that. But he was there offering platitudes and talking more political garbage. You know, governments should do more. Well, for God's sake, what have you been doing? You've been in power for 2 years. We're sick of talk. And in this case, if he had real sympathy for that young girl, and I don't believe him, I think he was on radio. He was on radio this morning, and he was on television, and he was asked whether he had lied, and he wouldn't say yes or no. And, you know, he could see that young girl was really upset. If it was me, if it was a politician with any heart, he would have gone up and apologised to her and put his arm around her. You know, I'm sorry, that man is a flotsam jetsam politician who just runs with the hounds. And, you know, he was opportunistic. He and Gallagher, the mean girl, were there to try and, you know, win some points, get some, you know, kudos. But really what he did was just show what an opportunist he is.
But Prue, what do you really think? Please.
Sorry, I'm holding back a bit because
this is why we love you. No, this is why we love you. You do not hold back at all. Let's stick with the Albanese government. They're rolling out these campaign. Well, it's not a campaign ad, but it looks like a campaign ad. They're all about the tax cuts. all over the radio. This one I'm about to show is on X. It'll be on television if it's not already. Have a look.
We've all been feeling cost of living pressures. That's why the Australian government's tax cuts from the 1st of July are for every taxpayer. Visit taxcuts.gov.au to find out how they'll benefit you.
But why do we need these very expensive ads? Any tax cut that you're entitled to is going to be calculated automatically, end up in your pay. There's no forms to fill in, no application process. This just seems like a big political campaign for the Albanese government, funded, ironically, by our taxpayers.
Well, yes, and that's illegal, really. It's just that he's lucky the election is a bit further down the track. But, you know, this is a government that's in trouble. He knows he's in trouble. He's looking around. He's like a drowning man who's got this life raft of, OK, well, the tax cuts are coming, so, you know, they got me through that Dunkley election, so maybe I can spend some of the poor sucker taxpayers' money and, you know, make myself look the big man. You know, we can all see through it, for God's sake. Meanwhile, the fuel excise is still as high as it ever was. They talk and talk about how they understand what we're all going through. Those tax cuts are not even going to buy us an ice cream. You know, it's just a load of crap. And this is why people are so fed up with this government, because they're all talk and it's all baloney.
Well, talking about governments in trouble, let's go to the US, where the New York Post reports Joe Biden is the least popular president in 70 years, below even Nixon and Carter. His approval rating is 38.7%, this is according to the latest Gallup poll. That's 3 points lower than George H.W. Bush at the same point in his presidency. And you remember George Sr. was at one-term president. With about 6 months remaining before Election Day, Biden stands in a weaker position than any prior incumbent, the pollsters concluded. Now, things are really grim for Joe Biden when even the CNN polls show him trailing badly behind Donald Trump. He is 6 points behind in a head-to-head race, and it's even worse in the latest CNN poll when you factor in other candidates.
In a head-to-head race, 49% of voters say they'd pick Trump for president, compared to 43% for Biden. That's a 9-point Trump advantage with independent voters. And add in third-party candidates, and Trump's lead jumps even more. He has 42% to Biden's 33%, and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. gets 16%. Voters, 4 years later, have a better view of Trump's presidency compared to Biden's. 55% say Trump's time in office was a success, with only 39% saying the same about Biden's presidency.
Prue, are we looking at a second Trump term, or can the Democrats and the establishment fortify another election? That's the term they like, fortify.
Oh, right. They're going to need to have a big fortification built. Look, the man's a dead, you know, he's a dead man walking, really. He looks like that when he's stumbling everywhere anyway. But people will, maybe he'll pick the ageist card and, you know, think that that's going to get him some support. But literally, he's beyond it. It'll be interesting to see whether the Democrats actually stick by him, or if he and, you know, his wife, for God's sake, you know, how is she allowing this man to continue? It's just really embarrassing, if not really quite pathetic, to see him in full force. So maybe the Democrats will read it and say, no, it's time to tap him on the shoulder. I know it's his choice, but why would he want to face this defeat unless Hunter's got a few more, you know, gigs that he wants to get going before they actually, you know, leave the White House? But it's a pretty pathetic situation when you've got Trump, who, you know, really everybody's really thinking, wow, a second term of Trump. But boy, he's got to be better than Biden. Anyone would be better than Biden.
Oh, absolutely. And the polls also show that people are remembering those Trump years a lot more fondly than you would imagine, given the media hysteria we saw throughout his 4 years. Prue McSween, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thanks, Rita.
Wonderful news from the UK with the NHS doing a dramatic U-turn on much of the woke craziness we have seen in the past decade. The hard left activism masquerading as inclusiveness. The UK Telegraph reports the NHS will crack down on transgender ideology in hospitals with terms like chest feeding set to be banned, referring to people who have ovaries rather than women will also be prohibited under the plans to ensure hospitals use clear language based on biological sex. Hallelujah. The new constitution will ban transgender women from being treated on single-sex female hospital wards to ensure women and girls receive privacy and protection in hospitals. Trans women and human rights activist Miranda Yardley joins me now. Miranda, the Health Secretary, Victoria Atkins, will announce these changes and more to the NHS constitution. Why do you think we are seeing such a departure from what has been instituted in recent years? And as a trans woman, do you feel victimised by any of these new measures?
I think the reason for the rollback of these policies that we're seeing is just simply because in the world of reality, a position that is based upon reality always wins. This whole ideological concept of the trans woman exists solely to conceal the fact that someone is a man, and that all trans women are by default men. And it creates a massive clash of rights that we see with women. The erasure of language that we've seen, however, is quite interesting. In that what it does is it manipulates language to affirm this idea of transgender identities, and the erasure of language has really, over the last 10 years, it has been championed as much by and before women who become men, or SATS men, as much as it has by the men who claim to be women.
Now, we've got a group of some 130 MPs, peers, doctors, psychiatrists, academics also writing to the Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak. They've demanded a public inquiry into transgender ideology in schools and in the NHS. This is after the bombshell Cass report revealed the lack of evidence in transgender medical care. Is there much of an appetite for another inquiry or review of this nature in the UK? Is it likely to happen?
Whether it happens or not, I don't know. This government is approaching the end of its life, and it does appear rather to be falling apart at the edges. I would say, however, that I believe that a public inquiry into how this ideology has taken grip of public institution, how it has infiltrated itself into schools and public places, and how it has led our institutions and our public figures to frankly embarrass themselves, making the most absurd statements you've ever seen in your life. As if you've ever seen the coverage around the rapist, the man Isla Bryson, who was convicted of rape and sexual assault against women and put into a women's prison, and the inability of our politicians to describe a man as a man, it is quite astonishing. I'm glad that the inquiry is being called for. What I would always question here is why it's taken so many people so darn long to put their head up and say, and do the right thing and say, this is unfair. It's instrumentalizing children for the benefit of men. And it completely lacks any form of evidence base. There is no basis, either scientifically, philosophically, or medically, to affirm this concept of transgender ideology, particularly in children.
Let's talk about Scotland. The First Minister there, Humza Yousaf, is fighting for his political survival. His coalition with the Greens has collapsed. The Scottish Conservatives have launched a vote of no confidence against him. How much of his troubles are connected to the rather radical policies he's backed, including around transgender policies and also those Orwellian hate speech laws?
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's totally the he is the instrument of his own undoing, as is the SNP. The SNP, exactly what happens when you have a political party that is that has pretty much an uncontested majority. It was propped up by the Butte House Agreement in the latter years with a coalition with the Green Party, who once sold themselves as the party of science and now is frankly the party of nonsense.
Now, you're someone who has transitioned. You're a transgender person. Do you see yourself as a woman, a trans woman, or do you see yourself as a man? How would you describe yourself, and how do you feel if you are misgendered?
That's a really interesting question. First of all, trans women are men. All trans women are men. The whole idea of transgender is wholly a political position. It is a use of language that is an attempt to conceal from the individual, to take that individual and implant in people's minds that the person that they're talking about is on some level a woman, and that to therefore affect the way that people see that person. I do not use preferred pronouns for anybody. I have had this position for a very, very long time, pretty much since I got involved in this debate, which I got involved in because I saw the completely unacceptable threats and actions that were being taken against women who spoke out against men who were claiming who were claiming access to women's spaces and were essentially branding women who they disagreed with as bigots and pushing them out of public life. I think the whole concept of transgender is a bogus social identity, and the sooner as a society we move away from this, I think will be liberating for everybody.
And do you find that the transgender activism we have seen in recent years has actually made life worse for trans people? It used to be live and let live attitude amongst many people, but now in the eyes of some, being trans is almost a political position, and it perhaps is inviting hostility that wasn't there before.
Oh, it's totally a political position. There was a situation, if you go back, if you go back a decade or more, that there was, I think, quite a lot of public sympathy for, your average man in the street. The public sympathy for people who claimed to be trans was there, and it was very much a live and let live attitude. But now now whatever trans is, we don't even know what it means, because anybody can be trans. Pretty much any useful idiot out there can be trans. It's become a meaningless label. Not that the whole idea anyway, which is built upon stereotypes, has had a particularly solid intellectual base anyway.
Miranda Yardley, thank you so much for your time this evening. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Still to come, an entire segment devoted to lefties losing it. You do not want to miss that. And later in the program, Taylor Swift fans likened to cult followers. Well, look at why. That's after this. You're watching the Rita Panahi Show, and it's time for Lefties Losing It. Now, imagine you walk into your child's elementary school, you enter the classroom and are confronted by this non-binary teacher, and you wonder, why is she so happy?
All the pretty girls walk like this. Pretty girls walk like this.
Guess why she's so happy? If you didn't read the caption there, she's overjoyed because the little kids she's supposed to be teaching are confused about whether she's Martha or Arthur. I mean, why would that bring you so much joy? Now, we've brought you plenty of footage of lefty students acting unhinged on university campuses, but the academics are no better. Indeed, one could argue they are worse. They have indoctrinated their students, they've enabled and emboldened the worst elements, and now they're joining the protests, and a few of them are getting themselves arrested in hilarious ways. Watch this economics professor from Emory University in Georgia, who was silly enough to hit a police officer, then refuse his orders to get down. Listen to her screaming, I'm a professor, as she's put in handcuffs.
You are fascist. You are Hitler. You are a rabid dog. Shame on you. May you never live another day. I am a professor. This is an Emory professor, everyone. I am a professor of economics. You are rabid dogs. You are...
Oh, it wasn't over yet. Now, I remind you, she is an economics professor. You'd think she'd have the good sense not to admit to assaulting the police officer, even as she's led away in handcuffs. Well, wrong. These are the simpletons that are determining how well a university student performs.
I impulsively hit him on the head very lightly to get his attention, and they grabbed me, threw me to the ground, and arrested me.
Guess what, lady? You can't impulsively or otherwise hit an officer on the head. You wanted his attention, you got it, Professor. Staying in Atlanta, it wasn't just that professor. Let's have a look at another one being led away in handcuffs. This one's a philosophy professor. She's very important, you know.
You call the philosophy department office and tell them I've been arrested?
Philosophy department?
Yes, call the philosophy department office.
I will. What's your...
Noel McAfee, I'm chair of the philosophy department.
I got you.
The president-elect of the university.
And one last one from Georgia. Watch and listen as this troublemaker is removed.
You're hurting me.
Just go live.
You're hurting me. Ow! 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 Help! Help!
Listen to that soy boy shrieking there. Incidentally, this is my new ringtone.
Ow! 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 Help! Help!
Now, if you're going to hold lawless protests, then best you do it in places like, I don't know, New York or California, where that kind of behaviour, that lawlessness is tolerated. Do not try those tactics in red states like Georgia or Texas. Watch here as law enforcement move in to restore order at University of Texas. Even the Austin campus is not immune from law and order. Anyone who knows Texas knows Austin has been slowly destroyed by the influx of Californians and New Yorkers and people from other blue states. But gosh darn it, it's still Texas, and order was restored. What happens when an attractive young woman invites people to get to know her better?
Hi.
Hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Noah.
So, where are you from?
Yes.
I go Colombia.
No. Spain.
Are you Czech?
I'm actually from Israel.
I'm going to stop this video now.
Now, after the initial shock, many of those, not all of them, many of those who were perturbed about sitting down with an Israeli did soften their stance considerably. But only last week, that young lady, Noah Kokva, she's a former Miss Israel, was allegedly assaulted during a pro-Palestinian protest at Times Square. Let's have a look at that incident. Police have released an image of the man they wish to speak to about that alleged assault. Now, let's lighten the mood with some more champagne comedy from Australian duo Superwog.
Were they white?
No.
Were they black?
No, colour doesn't matter, you bigot.
Were they fat?
That's body shaming. Sorry.
What did they look like?
A human. That's who you're getting from me, you pig.
Okay, witness says we're looking for an angry, BO-smelling, pink-haired dog with a nose ring over...
Let's stay in Australia, Melbourne to be precise, and have a look at this interaction between a curious football fan who asked what a pro-Palestinian protest is all about. Watch how reasonable and peaceful the response is.
Yeah, mate, it's just drunk.
It's just drunk.
Look after him, bro.
What's your problem? Are you another Zionist?
No, I wouldn't know what was going on.
Palestinian.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah, 15,000 children have been killed. And 35 people have been killed.
Yeah, that's up. I agree, man. I just wanted to... No, I got no... I got no...
Why are you stirring
Nah, here.
Why are you stirring
Nothing, problem.
You know,
Nothing.
something to them, mate.
Why are you stirring
Who's coming? Why are you stirring Who's being smart? Who is it?
Who is it? Who?
What are you saying?
Nothing, bro.
Too much to drink, you sure?
No, mate.
Better not be melting off.
No,
I'll
mate.
drop it right now. Are you Yeah, I am serious, yeah. What are you going to do? Yeah? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? Fuck you out. Not women. Not women, you big tough man.
Now, we've seen so-called progressives of all ages lose it, but are the next generation the most severely impacted by this woke mind virus, also known as Marxism? Many fear that's the case, but not Tim Dillon. He sees a different phenomenon happening. He says the cool kids are rebelling.
Yes, all the cool kids now are unwoke. Some of them are going back to Christianity because it's the only way to be rebellious. Because, you know, everybody's blue-haired, non-binary talking about piss orgies. And that's like, it's the cover of Newsweek. You have to be like a Catholic, Opus Dei, like sing the rosary to be a problem. Like, you used to be able to just dye your hair and get a tattoo and a nose ring. Now that's like, oh, what are you running for Congress?
Still to come, Jerry Seinfeld calls out lefties losing it. Why are TV sitcoms not funny anymore? And more on Britney Spears, who is spiralling. She's free, but she's spiralling. Kinsey Schofield up next. Welcome back. Comedian Jerry Seinfeld has come under fire for calling out lefties losing it, saying wokeness is to blame for the lack of quality sitcoms on TV. Take a listen.
You just expected there'll be some funny stuff we can watch on TV tonight. Well, guess what? Where is it? This is the result of the extreme left and PC crap and people worrying so much about offending other people. When you write a script and it goes into 4 or 5 different hands, committees, groups, here's our thought about this joke, well, that's the end of your comedy.
It's not the first time he's called out the left's toxic influence on comedy. He previously spoke out against the complaint that there's too many white men on TV, particularly on his programs.
I have noticed that most of the guests are mostly white males. Of 22 episodes that you've had.
Let's get into that.
No, but you
take a look over here, Peter. What do you see? A lot of whiteys. What's going on here? Oh, this really pisses me off. But go ahead. It really pisses me off. People think it's the census or something. I mean, this has got to represent the actual pie chart of America. Who cares? It's just funny. You know, funny is the world that I live in. You're funny, I'm interested. You're not funny, I'm not interested.
Joining me now is entertainment and royal reporter Kinsey Schofield. Kinsey, I do wonder whether Seinfeld, the program, would even be made today, or would it be considered too risque, too white, too heteronormative perhaps?
Right. I was just thinking that about Friends. You know, they complain that there are not enough Black characters on Friends today. I often watch The Office and think that could never be the American version, and I think that could never be made today. Even sometimes I'll watch Tim Allen's Tool Time before bed, and some of the jokes I go, ooh, that's a little edgy for today's material. But, you know, Seinfeld didn't say anything wrong, and you're right, he is getting slammed for it online. All he said is we're so worried about offending people that it's taken a hit to comedy, and comedy is not as special as it used to be. And I think if you do watch 80s and 90s sitcoms, you do experience those belly laughs, and you realize that it is hard to find content like that today.
Oh, absolutely. And it's no surprise that the best comics right now, the ones who demand the biggest audiences, Dave Chappelle, Ricky Gervais, are very much not politically correct. They do not give a stuff about offending people. They just worry about what's funny. And I do wonder what a modern Seinfeld would look like. Would we have to have, I don't know, Kramer be gay or a pansexual? Elaine would probably have to be black or Hispanic or some ethnic minority. George would probably be disabled. Jerry would be non-binary and on the spectrum. I mean, you could just imagine all the different characters you would have to be properly inclusive and reflecting of society. And that's all fine as long as the product is still funny. But sadly, these days, they seem to be so preoccupied with ticking boxes, they forget about the actual quality of the writing. Now, let's talk about Taylor Swift. Her latest album has come out, and the clips of the listening parties of her fans, oh my gosh. Now, this is going to be controversial, but some of these clips, Kinsey, are just cringe. Have a look. There are so many others like that, even people, older adults, having absolute meltdowns, emoting wildly, Kinsey, listening to this album. It's like a cult, a cringe cult.
Well, I just am constantly embarrassed for people on the internet. Like, do you not think that you might apply for a job in 3 years and somebody might Google you and stumble upon this and think this person is emotionally unstable and I don't want them working at my Home Depot? I do think she's getting a lot of hate over this album. And you and I were just talking about how friendship bracelets. This is a grown woman. You know, I think we're hearing that grown woman on this album. So I do want to stress that when we were talking about the friendship bracelets and everything, when I was listening to the album, I thought, I wonder if Rita is hearing the grow up that I'm hearing throughout it. And you know, analytics matter, and 2.61 million units were sold in the U.S. alone in the week ending in April 25th. So whether the Swifties are crazy or not, it's sending Taylor all the way to the bank.
Oh, absolutely. And one of the songs on the album is called Thank You, Amy. It's supposed to be a diss track aimed at Kim Kardashian, with the lyrics referring to a bronze spray tan statue and also this. And one day your kid comes home singing a song that only us two is going to know is about you. What do you make of this? Is this aimed at Kim Kardashian, or are people, is there another Kim in her life that she hates? Because I would be surprised if she's still worried about this so many years later. You would have thought it would be a very minor issue in her life that doesn't really warrant a song being devoted to it.
Well, there are over 31 songs, or there's over 30 songs here, I think. So I do think that this is kind of a vault and a purge, and her releasing things that she doesn't want to address ever again. I do think Kim Kardashian's nasty and mean. You know, we saw the way she teased the Princess of Wales during the Where Is Kate drama. Kim Kardashian posted all of her latex photos and said, "On my way to find Kate." So I do think she's a nasty girl. And if Taylor Swift wants to take it to her, God bless. I'm all about that life.
You're in Team Swift there, absolutely. I'm not sure. I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see a proper fight between these two, because this goes back to when I think Taylor Swift took issue with some lyrics in Kanye West's song, and then Kim released an audio, I think, of Taylor saying that she was okay with the lyrics, and then when the song was released, audio. She wasn't. Am I remembering that right? Because your knowledge on this stuff is much better than mine.
Yeah, it turned out to be edited. So that's what was so upsetting to Taylor, is that Kim Kardashian had edited it to make it look like it was clean cut. Yes, you can use these lyrics, because they were really vulgar about her, remember? They were about fornicating, Kanye and Taylor. And so that is why she was so upset. But also don't forget, Rita, that Meghan hand wrote Taylor a letter begging her to be on the Archetypes podcast, and Taylor sent her representatives to tell her she was too busy. So we love Taylor.
I'm on the fence with Taylor. I don't dislike her. I don't love her. I'm just, to me, I don't. I marvel at the fans and their meltdowns. That's far more entertaining for me. I've got to ask you about Britney Spears very quickly. She seems more and more troubled. The footage that comes out of her, that she puts out there dancing, doing some erratic dancing with knives. We know she's no longer with her husband. Her kids, very sadly, won't see her. And sometimes it seems, Kinsey, she's spiralling and she's got no one to look after her. Was the whole Free Britney movement wrong? Did they get it wrong? Does she actually need someone to keep an eye on things?
And the man she's been seen with recently is like a felon that was cleaning her house. I mean, yes, I think that the Free Britney movement came from a good place, but I don't think that we understood how deeply unsettled she is. I do think she has mental health issues. These types of videos are exactly why her sons choose not to associate with her. They've said to the media that they're humiliated by the type of content she puts out on the internet, and they want to disassociate. And so I do think she's in desperate need of help, but unfortunately, she really doesn't trust anybody because she felt so violated over those 13 years that she was under that conservatorship.
Now, let's talk about another child star, Charlotte Church. We all remember her. She had that angelic voice as a child. Well, she's saying that she's no longer a millionaire. 25 years after she recorded her first album, aged just 11. It's sold millions of copies worldwide, but she was said to have a fortune close to 50 million by the age of 12. What happened, Kinsey? Where did all the money go? We know now these days she's a activist. She's very much a leftist activist, and she's gone woke and gone broke. But really, seriously, what happened to that enormous wealth?
I mean, she kind of alludes to the fact that she just blew it in this article where we find out that she's selling her home. She said, I wanted the mansion. I wanted the mansion by the forest. And then she talks about how she's spent years renovating it. I mean, how sad to pour so much money into a property that you inevitably have to give up because you can't afford it. But it sounds like she just did not manage her money well. But it's funny you say that she's an activist, because I only know her as an activist today, and she complained in that article about how her stepfather pushed her to continue music after the age of 14 because she didn't really like it. But now that the funds are low, she's decided she really wants to pursue music again.
Yes, well, let's see if she's still got that angelic voice. Let's talk Rebel Wilson. The Aussie actress's memoirs are going to be on sale in the UK. There was a bit of a delay, but they're there minus some very key paragraphs, chapters involving the Sacha Baron Cohen allegations. They've been redacted. But I do wonder whether the damage is done here, Kinsey, and whether Sacha Baron Cohen should have made such a fuss. It's almost like the Streisand effect here. Everyone knows what she has said, even if they can't read it in her book in some countries.
Everyone knows what she said, and on top of that, like the icing on the cake was the announcement of his divorce and this hidden separation for years between him and his wife, which also magnified the allegations, because whether she hasn't said anything, but the immediate public perception is that he is this man, and that's why this sweet wife that this trophy on his arm that always kind of got him into these rooms he normally wouldn't be allowed into. I think that it almost made people think that this truly was who he is as a person. And it's not hard to get online and find those chapters. So I do think that it has hurt his credibility. I think it's hurt his reputation a little bit. But like we said, at the end of the day, Hollywood is completely backwards. If he can make somebody a buck, he will be back on a movie set tomorrow.
Well, he strenuously denies all those allegations, so we should point that out. Before you go, you mentioned Meghan earlier, and she's had a few more celebrities post pictures of her jam jars. This is Meghan Markle's big genius idea for her lifestyle brand, strawberry jam, and probably the biggest star so far to post about this product is Kris Jenner. She's the mother of the Kardashians and the Jenner girls. How do you see this, Kinsey? Is this a massive coup for her? A lot of people are saying, obviously, Kris Jenner just didn't even bother opening the package for the longest time because the lemons there don't look in the best shape. And but she has belatedly posted it. Is that an enormous success, or is it all a little bit sad?
I mean, I think it's a poor reflection of Meghan because, like I said earlier, Kim Kardashian teasing Kate right before we found out she has cancer. It doesn't look like the company that Meghan keeps is very good when you're associating with people that would be so insensitive during a time where we knew for a fact that the Princess of Wales was recovering from a major surgery. So I think it's just gross. Who cares what Kris Jenner gets a lot of stuff for free, and I bet she tosses half of it, if not most of it, and I bet that jam's already in the dumpster.
Well, yeah, I don't think the Kardashians like the carbs too much. So yeah, if you want them to actually try your product, probably a jam is not the way to go. Kinsey Schofield, thank you so much for your time this evening.
Thank you.
That's it from me. Up next is Newsnight. I'll see you at 11 tomorrow. Good night.